Trent Sisley starting as a freshman for Indiana basketball. I think there's a world where that could happen.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. It is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen or your first watch every single day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. Well, college athletics have changed forever with the revenue sharing that was approved on Friday night. We'll talk about that later on in the show, how it could benefit Indiana, how it could hurt Indiana, and whether we can keep up where other schools like us can't keep up in the arms race that has presented itself. But Trent Sisley, the lone freshman coming into Indiana basketball, the one high school recruit that the Hoosiers will have for the 2025 and 2026 season. Word on the street is he's starting to impress. It's very early in practice. They just reported last week. And so take all of this and all of that and whatever you see, hear, read, and have been told, take it all lightly, okay? Because there's still so much basketball to have practice, right? There's so much practice and workouts and drills and everything leading up to the start of the season. There's still a lot of time left before the beginning of November. But the word is that Trent Sisley has impressed early on. And it got me thinking, is there a way? Is there a possibility? Is there a world where Trent Sisley as a freshman could start on this Indiana basketball team? And I think there is. I think there's a way and a possibility for that to become true. Now, there are several things that go into that mindset. There are several things that would have to happen for that to be the case, but I don't think they're all that crazy. And you first have to look at, okay, well, what type of a player is he? What makes him so good? What makes him somebody that, even if he doesn't start, someone that can make an impact on this Indiana basketball team? And well, for starters, it's the fact that he shoots it at over 40% from three pretty much his entire career on the high school rankings and his AAU ball. I mean, the kid can shoot it lights out. And Indiana has him listed on the official roster at 6'8", 215. I think he was like 6'7", 220 on his high school like recruiting rankings and stuff, but 6'8", 215 is what Indiana has him listed on the official roster. And he, of course, played most a forward in his high school days, but a forward that handled the basketball, would orchestrate the offense, and do a lot of those things that you see at the high school level. And so would he play forward in college? Yeah, probably either small forward or power forward, but he's somebody that with the basketball in his hands, you trust him. You trust him to do things and make the right decisions, make the right pass, take a good shot, and get to the basket when needed. And so I think a lot of those things are playing in his favor for a guy that was a top 75 high school recruit, one that had mixed feelings from recruiting experts who said, yeah, he's a pretty good player. Don't know if his upside is there. Don't know if he's the greatest shot creator, but he's a pretty good player. I think he's a great player. I think he's really, really good. And I really do believe that he is someone that will make an instant impact on this team, whether that is in the starting rotation or maybe a sixth or seventh man, because you start to look at what the Hoosiers have and it's like, okay, 6'8", kind of big for a guard, right? But you feel that between him and Tucker DeVries, who's listed at 6'7", 215, you feel that those guys could be a 3 and a 4. Of course, Reed Bailey is your 5. Sam Alexis probably your backup 5. He could work his way into a starting 4, but I would like to see the 6'9" Sam Alexis probably be your backup 5. But Trent Sisley is a really good defender, and people don't realize that, I don't think. His length and athleticism allows him to guard almost 1 through 5. And sort of in a situation where if he does get switched out on a guard on the perimeter, you don't want him guarding it for 24, 25 seconds at a time. But if it's 10, 12, or 15 seconds, he can hold his own. And then he's going to have to beef up a hair, and I'm sure that he will by the time the season starts and kind of as the season goes on. But I think his defensive abilities and his shot making abilities could see him as a starter in this basketball season for Indiana. Do I think he'll be a starter at the beginning? No, I don't, because the questions come in. Can you trust a freshman? Can you trust a guy who has never played a single second of competitive college basketball, meaningful college basketball? He's going to be playing against all these guys all summer long and leading up to the season, but he's never played a minute of real college basketball. Do you trust him to step out there game one against all these opponents that you're going to see in the non-con, including Marquette and Kentucky and teams like that? I don't know. Probably not. But freshmen start across college basketball all the time. By no means is this the one and done era that we used to be in, and thank God for that. But freshmen starting in the Big Ten or in this day and age of college basketball is not a crazy idea. And so I don't think he'll start at the beginning, but it would not shock me if he were to earn his way as a starter at some point through the season. Because remember this too, you're playing with a team full of transfer portal players. None of these guys, I think two of them, right? Two North Florida kids. But other than that, nobody has played together before. We have no idea how this is going to gel, how it's going to mesh, how it's going to play out. And if you remember, I've told you, out of all these transfer portal players, there will be one or two that just don't work out, that just aren't good enough for what we're looking for, that just don't meet the expectations of Darian DeVries, this staff, and the Indiana program. It's going to happen. It's impossible for it not to. That's where Trent Sisley can kind of take advantage, and you kind of just wait around in the weeds and do what they tell you to do and execute in the minutes that you get, because he's going to play. Regardless if he actually does start or not, he will get minutes. And I expect those to be productive minutes when he's in there. And so, sure, it may be a little out there to suggest that it could happen, but I really do think it could. And I don't know, January, February, going into March, if he's playing his best basketball, if he becomes one of the better shooters on this year's team from behind the three-point line, and he doesn't turn the ball over, doesn't get beat on defense, and hustles down the floor, why not? Why not give the freshman an opportunity? The guy who has stuck it out this entire time with Indiana as a team, as a program, through one coaching change and now into a new staff, why not give him an opportunity? If he earns it, absolutely. And so Trent Sisley, I'm excited to see him. He's the only young freshman coming in, and he's going to be a really good player. And I do believe that he has a chance to be a starter at some point throughout the year. But even if he's not, he's going to make an impact in the minutes that he does get on this year's squad. All right, coming up here on Locked On Hoosiers, college athletics have changed forever with revenue sharing. Yeah, it's here. We'll talk about what it means, what happened, and how the Hoosiers can benefit or hopefully not get hurt by all this. That's all coming up here on the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing. The finals are off and running, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments, right? Whether it's a game-winning shot, we've seen that one already, or a breakout player still waiting there, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and once it's already started. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. And look, if you expect Halliburton to keep doing his thing, if you think SGA is going to score 50 points a game, it doesn't really matter. Find somebody and get in on the action, because I know you've got a hunch. I know you've been watching the first two games and you know what's going to happen in game three, don't you? Get on FanDuel and see if you could benefit from that, okay? Because right now, if you're new to FanDuel, now's the time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, they're going to give you $200 in bonus bets, all right? Make every moment more with FanDuel. They're the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. Appreciate you being here, making this your go-to spot for all things Indiana athletics. And this conversation over the next two segments is not necessarily about one Indiana sport in particular. It's about college athletics as a whole that have now changed forever. The ruling on late Friday night from from the NCAA and from the House settlement stuff. This entire thing that we've been talking about and kind of just been on the back burner and waiting for something to happen. Well, it all happened on Friday night. And there's a lot of legal jargon here. There's a lot of language. There's a lot of different descriptions and explanations of what happened. But simply put, for me to explain it to you, it's revenue sharing. Revenue sharing is here. We figured it was coming. We knew it was in the works and it was going to happen eventually. And now it is here. That's what this entire thing has been about, is the fact that colleges like Indiana can now pay athletes directly based off the money that the university and the athletic department brings in. Okay. That's what's happening here. And there's a bunch of numbers and what they can do now and what they'll do in 5 years and 10 years. And it kind of just builds as it goes. Okay. There's a lot to it. And to be honest with you, I'm still kind of learning all about it. And it's going to take us all a while to truly figure out what all of this means. But simply put, schools can now pay you directly if you're an athlete. If you're a football player, basketball player, swimming and dive athlete, it doesn't matter. You can be paid directly from the school that you are competing for. Okay. And so here's some of the things that you need to know. Schools are going to be able to spend around $20 to $21 million a year directly to their athletes. This little bit is from an ESPN article. It says that figure comes from a negotiated formula that caps athlete payments at 22% of the average annual revenue that FBS level schools get from ticket sales, broadcast rights, and few other items. Okay, so they can pay big schools, again, Indiana, schools in the Big Ten, SEC, all across the country at the highest FBS level. You can pay up to 22% of your revenue and pay athletes to compete for you. Now, here's what's important here. That number is going to grow. They expect that 20 something million to get to nearly 30 million in 10 years when this whole deal kind of works itself out and goes across its longevity. Okay. There's a lot here. And unfortunately, we knew this was coming. And it's so wild to me. And we're going to talk the Indiana specifics in the third segment. So be sure to stick around for that. But it's so wild to me because we went from way back when, back in the day, right, where athletes didn't make money technically, right? Athletes just went to school, you got a scholarship, you had your food paid for, you got your clothes, all that sort of stuff. You just went to be a student athlete. And then people started fighting and arguing and saying, well, athletes should be paid. They should be paid because they bring in so much money for Indiana or Ohio State or for Michigan or Penn State or whoever the case may be. Oh, the athletes bring in so much money for those schools and those athletic departments. They should be compensated for that. They should be paid on their name, image, and likeness. Oh, they should be paid for their name because you're benefiting from it. So they should too. All right. I didn't agree with it. So a lot of people didn't. A lot of people did. Ultimately, we come up with NIL. You can get paid for your name, your image, and your likeness. And I'm not going into detail about what all that was supposed to be. We've had that rant before, but we went from, hey, you can go make a deal with a car dealership if you want to and tell everybody you know and be in a commercial to go buy from this dealership down the street. We went from that to this, where athletes are getting a direct check, a direct deposit, straight cold hard cash from the school that they're now going to compete for. And I hate it. I hate it, man. It takes away everything that college athletics was supposed to be, or it takes away everything college athletics used to be. And we've seen it coming. This is nothing new. This is not a shock. This is not a, holy smokes, where did this come from? No, we've seen it coming. And I've talked about on this program and several other programs about how college athletics day by day, and this may have been the final straw of college athletics have been moving towards a professional model for a long, long time. When money started to get involved with athletes, that's when it started to go towards the professional side of things. And whether that's football, basketball, lacrosse, doesn't matter. When you start talking about money and negotiations and contracts and agents and revenue sharing and percentages, like all of that is what the professionals talk about. And so what this means is now you're going to see high school athletes and now even current college athletes with straight up negotiations with their programs. And so for Indiana, you're going to have to negotiate with quarterbacks. You're going to negotiate with a 5-star basketball center. You're going to have to negotiate with a starting pitcher or a bullpen guy. You're going to have to pay all of them. Good news with this whole thing is the schools do have a choice. If Rutgers says, and we don't have $20 million to pay our athletes, but we'll pay 13. Okay, cool. Good for you. You can pay up to that number. Somebody like Ohio State, yeah, they're going to pay every single possible penny that they can, at least on paper. And that's where I get hung up in this whole thing too, is like, okay, cool. Now we have open proof of payment to players, but do we really think that that's going to stop people from paying players illegally still under the table, $100 handshakes? Those aren't going anywhere. This at least documents up to a certain amount, but the schools who can afford it are going to continue to do it illegally and cheat their way to the top. That's just how college athletics works. That's nothing new either. I'm not calling anybody out in particular. Everybody does it. Okay. It's been happening since college athletics were invented. It's always been that way. But this at least gives you an idea and a paper trail and a market value. You're going to hear that term a lot, so just be ready for that. That's going to give you a market value on what the quote going rate for a 5-star quarterback is, or what the going rate for a state champion track sprinter. Like, that's literally what it's going to be. Same way you see in the NFL or the NBA or MLB. Oh, wow, the Dodgers just paid this guy X amount of dollars. That's a lot of money. Well, we can't afford that, but he must be good enough. That's what it is. And then the next guy says, hey, the Dodgers just paid this guy X amount of dollars. I want at least that much, if not more. See how that works? That's where we're going in college athletics. I don't like it. I absolutely hate it. This is not what it was supposed to be. But my opinion is, and everybody's got a different thought on this, now that we're getting into it, we need to go full-fledged. No more of this peddling around. And I think that's what this whole deal is going to do. And hopefully it does benefit Indiana. Again, more on that in the third segment. But now that we have ripped off that Band-Aid, and that's what this did on Friday night was, hey, pay your athletes, whatever. Take your revenue, pay your athletes, and pay them to win. That's where we are. Now that we have ripped that Band-Aid off, it's time to go full force. It's time to say no more college athletics. This is professional sports. We're going to have contracts. We're going to have payments. We're going to have caps. We're going to have deadlines. We're going to have all of the stuff that you see on the professional side of things and whatever sport you want to pick. And we're going full professional mode. That's where we need to go, because you can't teeter the line like we've been trying to do. That's why there's a million lawsuits out there. That's why the NCAA is getting sued to oblivion, because they don't know what to do. And we've been trying to teeter this line for so long. No more of that. This is pros now. You're a professional athlete. You're a 19-year-old playing football at the University of Wyoming. Cool. You're a professional athlete. Oh, okay. You're a shot put athlete down at Florida. Sweet. You're a professional athlete. No more differentiating professional and college. Those days are gone. Could this benefit athletes? Yes. They're going to make money. There's going to be a legal way to do it. But we just need to go full force into the professional side of things. And so now the concern is, where's the separation? Who can keep up? Who can't? Who's going to benefit and who's going to be hurt? Indiana, kind of in between. We'll talk about that, plus other schools in the Big Ten. And what all this means moving forward, we'll have that for you in our final segment right here on Locked On Hoosiers. All right, final segment here on Locked On Hoosiers. Thank you again so much for being here as we continue talking this major moment in college athletics that all takes place and goes into effect on July 1. It happened on Friday night. It goes into effect July 1, where revenue sharing is now a thing in college athletics. And There's so much to break down on this, and I have a good feeling we're going to talk about this on the Big Ten Squad this week. So be sure you're checking that out on Thursdays. Is when it comes out here on the channel. We've had great turnout on that show from a lot of our Big Ten folks. So be sure that you are checking that out. I do my best to hop on there every week. So be sure that you are checking that out, YouTube or on the audio side of things as well. But I have a feeling we're going to talk about this because this decision impacts every school in America, yes, but just focus in on the Big Ten for a second. And of course, Indiana here. Who can keep up? Who can't? Teams like Ohio State, yeah, they're going to be fine. They have no issue spending $20 or $21 million a year to pay their athletes directly from the money that the university makes and the athletic department makes. Fine, good enough. But somebody like Northwestern, they're going to struggle. They're going to struggle really bad because now, like I said, this market value going rate idea of athletes who want to make money have a way to do it on paper, have a way to have a legitimate contract and a salary to go play wherever they want to. And schools like Northwestern can't keep up with that. Or I think of like a Vanderbilt in the SEC, or trying to think of a Big 12 school. I mean, I don't know. And this is in football in particular, because that's where most of the money is going to go. That's no secret. I mean, most schools are going to put most of their money into the football players because that's the sport that brings in the most money at 95% of schools across the country. But those smaller teams and athletic departments, they're just not going to be able to keep up. And then you have to make decisions of, okay, well, we can spend up to 20.5 million, but we only have 13 or 14 or 15 million. How much do we want to spend on one big player or a lot of little players, right? Do you want to go after one big 5-star and pay him a couple mil and then have less to pay everybody else? Or say, I think we'll settle for the 3-star quarterback, but we're going to get a lot of good receivers, though. We're going to get a lot of players rather than a couple of good ones, right? All of that is now going to have to be thought about. And my goodness, man, being a coach in this day and age would be just downright miserable, right? It would be downright miserable to be a coach in this era. And so where does Indiana fall into this, right? Where does Indiana fall in all of this conversation of spending X amount of dollars and paying players with revenue sharing? And can the Hoosiers keep up? I think so. I think so. I don't think money will be a problem at Indiana, but you have to remember, these are two different things. Revenue sharing is different than NIL or donors or boosters, right? Revenue is the university, the athletic department can pay you based off the money it brings in. You can pay a percentage of that to your athletes. Awesome. Okay. You still have donors, you still have boosters, you still have fundraising. None of that is going anywhere. But it all does kind of play into itself. And we're going to kind of learn over time how all of this is separated. But I'm not concerned about the Hoosiers. I'm not concerned about Indiana football. I'm not concerned about Indiana basketball. I'm not concerned about women's basketball. But there are a lot of places that are. There's a lot of places that are concerned with women's sports. Where does Title IX fall into all of this? What about the smaller sports of rowing or, volleyball for school? You know what I'm saying? Like, those types of sports are going to struggle because they're not going to see much of this money at all because of where it goes to football and men's basketball at a place like Indiana, who will probably put more money to basketball than a lot of other schools will, right? Somebody take Michigan or Ohio State, for example. They're going to pay good money for basketball, but not as much as Indiana will. They'll put more money to football than Indiana will too. But somebody like Kursignetti can come in and demand some things. And so it's going to get dicey. It's going to get really, really fascinating to see how each athletic department, each head coach, each school handles their business, handles their dollars. How well do you handle your finances? Because that's where you are. You have to think about this. And how much do you spend in the year 2025 versus the year 2026? How much do you use for the 2025 football team? Or how much do you save? Because this is a possibility now for you to use in the transfer portal in the spring and gear up for the 26 season, knowing that 2025 is just not going to be all that good. Not talking about a team in particular, just the idea of tanking. You can tank now and save your money. Unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And let's be real. For a school like Indiana, who may not have the money to spend on football like that every single year, maybe that is the better idea of, you know, we don't have it this year, but we're going to have it next year. So let's settle for a mediocre season and let's go for a big season next year. That idea is crazy to me. And that's some of the things that have ruined professional athletics. And now they're trying to fix all of that with caps and lotteries and things like that. But it's just stuff and conversations we've never had in the college game before. And now we have to adjust. Now we have to figure out where all this is going. And this all kind of seems chaotic as I'm talking about it. And I promise I tried to structure this the best that I could, but we're all learning. This is all brand new. This is stuff we've never dealt with before at the college game. But my message to you, Indiana fans, is the Hoosiers will be okay. Hoosiers athletics are going to be fine for the most part. Some will go away. Some will disappear because at the end of the day, athletics is a business and you have to fund what makes you money. You have to provide for the sports that bring in revenue. That's just how it goes. The NCAA has had protections for a long time, but we relied on the NCAA for too long and their power has been taken away. Their cards were shown and people called them out and realized you have no power. You have no authority. And you really just have no say. And so the fallout and aftermath of this is going to be wild, but I do think that Indiana is going to be okay. Revenue sharing, it's here, man. Get ready for it. There's a lot to learn and a lot more to discuss, and we will over the next several days, weeks, months, and years as this continues to evolve. But Friday night, the Band-Aid was ripped off, and revenue sharing in college athletics is here, and it is here to stay. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. Thank you again so much for being here. Cannot put into words how much your support has meant, and especially here in the month of June where no sports are happening on the college side, but we're getting ready for football. Basketball has reported. There's so much going on. Recruiting was big this past weekend too. Going to try and talk some recruiting this week as well for football and for basketball. So this is where you need to be right here in Locked On Hoosiers. All right, we are back tomorrow, Hoosier fans, for another episode. So until then, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.